Okay, so what are their reasons, Achen and Bartel's in Democracy for Realists? What are their reasons for elections still being broadly good things? First one is this agreement one that we spoke about briefly at the end of the last lecture. And remember that Achen and Bartel's, they're writing this book in really sort of over the period after 2012, although some of the book was conceived earlier. But the most important thing is this is before Trump really takes off in 2016, even though the book's published in 2016. And it's definitely before the 2020 election, which is probably the most highly contested result for an election in US history, certainly recent history. But Achen and Bartel say, obviously writing before that, they say that even a really bitter election, the 2000 election, where it's really close in the end, and it turned on a few hundred votes in Florida. And also there was a Supreme Court decision about the extent to which certain aspects of the election were legal. Even that, after Bush won, it wasn't like the Democrats stormed the Capitol or tried to have revolution. And therefore, Achen and Bartel say that generally elections are pretty good at basically deciding the question of who should rule. Then they say it also stops rulers and the elites and the people who rule in democracies from having it too easy and from basically getting too comfortable with power. They need to acknowledge in democracies that essentially at some point they will lose, okay? And in a proper democracy, that is the case. So even if you're a very popular ruler of a democracy, essentially at some point you will be defeated at an election, and that can be to all kinds of random factors. Then the next one they say is that what elections do is they do allow, in some form, platforms for other opposition or people who oppose the ruling government or politicians from again getting too comfortable, from letting power go to their head. And really on a more philosophical level, they think that what it does is it allows people to disagree with what the leader says. Okay, so this is related to freedom of speech. And they say this bit where they say it's a difficult concept and it's one that arrived surprisingly late in democratic theorizing. What they mean there is that in, for instance, the 1500s, there were lots of debates about, well, am I no longer patriotic? Am I a traitor if I disagree with what the king says? If the king says you need to be a Catholic, and then I don't want to be a Catholic, am I a traitor? Do I no longer believe in my country, in my society? And what Achen and Bartel say is that the good thing about elections in a democracy is that you can still have a different view and still vote for someone other than the government. And you can still be someone who believes in the country because you're still voting and participating in the politics of the country. So it's a bit of a complicated point. Don't worry if you don't quite understand it, but it's quite an interesting one, so I've included it. And then this is another point, which they don't necessarily believe in wholeheartedly. They think that you can't necessarily prove this. However, lots and lots of people think this is similar to the view that we talked about in lecture 2, that democracy is just good and it is good for us. It's what we want to do. It's good for us as people.